everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast presented by DreamCricket. I'm your host, Peter Della Penna, and on today's episode we have star bowler for the USA Women's National Team and also a member of the Southern Vipers in the Kia Super League, as well as the Southern Brave in the inaugural edition of the 100, Tara Norris. Tara is somebody who's been around the world for family reasons and for cricket reasons, born in Philadelphia, but spent some time growing up in mainland Europe and then found her way into cricket when her family returned back to their roots in England. We'll get to hear about Tara's journey into cricket and into the USA Women's National Team, where she recently made her debut for the USA Women in Mexico, playing a starring role in the USA Women's Team's championship run at the ICC Americas Women's T20 World Cup qualifier that took place in October. And coming up later in November, Tara is going to be leading the USA bowling attack in Zimbabwe at the Women's 50-over World Cup qualifier. And already Tara has had a very pivotal role in one of the warm-up matches that USA defeated the Netherlands by 4 wickets. Tara with incredible figures of 4 wickets for 3 runs in a blistering opening spell to set up USA victory. A lot of people are hoping that she can replicate that when the tournament begins proper, with USA taking on Pakistan, Bangladesh, Thailand, and Zimbabwe in group play. Tournament starts on November 21st. USA's first match is on November 23rd. We'll get to all that and more with Tara, whose interview we've split up into 2 parts. We had a lot to cover. The first chunk of her interview will be in this episode, and then part 2 will be on the eve of the 50 over World Cup qualifier in Zimbabwe. So stay tuned for that. But for now, we've got part 1 coming up. Before we get to that, first, I want to say thank you to our newest Patreon subscriber, Steve Weiss. Steve is a hardcore USA fanatic, follows the fortunes of the USA national team. He's based in upstate New York in Schenectady. Schenectady is much closer to the state capital in Albany, and Steve is active in local cricket there, and he's an avid follower of the USA national team, and now he's a Patreon subscriber. And if you haven't already, I encourage everybody out there who's following the podcast and listening to the podcast to subscribe on Patreon. You help make the podcast run on a regular basis. So thank you again to everybody else who has also come on board. I also want to thank our title sponsors for the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast, DreamCricket, and also Moose Cricket Stadium, the first and original turf wicket facility in the state of Texas. For more information, call 713-534-2195. That's Moose Cricket Stadium in Pearland, Texas. Today's guest on the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast, presented by DreamCricket, is Tara Norris, who just made her USA national team debut at the ICC Americas Women's T20 World Cup qualifier in Mexico. Tara, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Appreciate it. So, what was your experience like? Let's start off with coming out of Mexico. You've had a couple days to digest not just the on-field experience, but off the field. Your first experience being part of the national team. What was it like?
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, I've had a few days to reflect and get over whatever Mexico sickness bug that everyone had. Dodgy water, I'm not sure. But yeah, on reflection, an amazing trip. Really, really privileged to be a part of it and to meet other girls and actually play out there. So yeah, lots of positives to take away, lots of work-ons, and hopefully moving forward to the 50 over qualifiers.
And those will be coming up at the end of November, just before Thanksgiving for everybody in the US. USA will be playing starting November 21st in Zimbabwe, the 50 over World Cup qualifier. USA is taking on Bangladesh, Pakistan, Thailand, and Zimbabwe on their half of the draw in the 10-team tournament. And it's the first time that USA will be playing 50 over cricket, women's cricket, since 2011. People can believe it. It's very exciting. What are your thoughts before we go on about some of your background? What are your thoughts just generally about getting an opportunity, not just 20 over qualifier, but now 50 over qualifier, and getting a chance to take on some of the teams you're going to be able to take on?
Yeah, I think brilliant. I think the Mexico trip was probably a warm-up in terms of probably oppositions we'll be playing. I think as a group we'll definitely be challenged. Definitely the underdogs going into it, I think. But sometimes it's good to be the underdogs. It means we've got something to prove, and we've obviously got some momentum behind us from the T20 stuff. So if we can shift that, and like the group are amazing. There's a lot of passion, there's a lot of love for the game, a really talented young side. So I'm hopeful. I think, it'll be a good competition regardless. Obviously, if we got through, that would just be insane. But I think there's a lot of learning to go from this group, and the tournament will be one to remember for sure.
Fingers crossed, absolutely all the things you just said. Now, your backstory, which I'm sure a lot of people are curious about who haven't gotten a chance to meet you. You were born in Philadelphia.
Correct, yeah.
But from talking to you and also listening to another podcast that was done by Wisdom, you moved quite early on with your family to Spain. And your parents were both involved in the pharmaceutical industry, and that's how your family was based in Eastern Pennsylvania to begin with. But then your dad's work, your parents' work took you from Philadelphia to Spain, and then eventually back to England. Your dad, you finally referred to as being from the borough, Middlesbrough.
The mighty borough, yeah. Can't believe you dropped that in there. I'll be so happy.
So take us through kind of the early part of your existence, because I think your journey is a very fascinating one from the standpoint of it's a very unique one in terms of how you wound your way into cricket. So what were the early years like for you?
Yeah, I don't remember much from America, if I'm being honest. My childhood was brought up in Spain, in Barcelona, living by the sea, pretty much getting picked up from school and going straight to the beach pretty much every day. That's what I remember my childhood being. Very sunny, very Mediterranean lifestyle living. I went to an international school, and then about 2006 we moved to the UK. The bribery, well, we moved my dad's job, obviously in the pharmaceutical industry. The bribery was to move, and we'd get a dog. So me and my sisters obviously were all in favour. So we moved in 2006 and been there over 10 years and still got no dog, actually. So that's kind of the background. We moved, we obviously had family in the UK. I guess it made sense, and just moved my dad's job. But yeah, amazing childhood. We haven't been back to Philly since, but yeah, unfortunately I don't remember much of it.
Your dad is a clever salesman.
Yeah, he really is.
Got everybody to move back, still no dog.
Yeah, he's in the wrong industry.
We gotta talk to him about it. We gotta get that squared away, Tara. From Philadelphia to Spain, you said Barcelona, and then back to England. At what point did you start playing cricket? Because I'd imagine you were playing a whole lot of other sports before then.
Yeah. No, funny enough, cricket wasn't on the school agenda in Spain. It was a lot of swimming. I'm a big tennis fan, so I played tennis at school. Loved watching tennis. A lot of football. I've got two older sisters who are completely different to me. They're not sporty at all, nor are they competitive. So growing up, it was me just pretty much just playing in the backyard on my own or with my dad. Yeah, at school. So when I went to the UK, it was kind of a way of me to make friends, really. A bit of an outsider, a bit of an outcast. So I joined an after-school club of cricket, and I had no idea what the sport was. Had never heard of it in my life. Even though my dad's a big cricket fan, I don't remember him watching cricket as a kid until I started playing. So yeah, I joined the after-school club. I was the only girl there. It didn't seem to bother me. I really enjoyed it. Picked it up really well. Had decent hand-eye coordination, maybe from tennis, I'm not sure. And I just kept on going to after-school clubs because I loved it. And eventually they kind of pushed me into a girls' club, a local club down the road. And then the club kind of pushed me towards county trials. And I pretty much went through the same transition as most young kids do, all to the county age groups, some England pathway stuff, and then to a professional contract as of last summer. All in a nutshell, really.
For people who are not aware, so when you came to England and this whole age group pathway that you've been on has been with Sussex.
Yes.
So when you came back to England from Barcelona, where exactly did you and your family locate?
Yeah, so my parents had previously lived in Loughborough. That's where they met. And then I've got family mostly in the south coast, but saying that I've got relatives that live up north. That's where my dad's from. I've still got some Italian family back in Italy. But yeah, we moved down south to Sussex area. The schools are really good there and that kind of thing, and it's close to family. So yeah, moved to a little town called Horsham, played for Horsham Cricket Club. And in fact, I still remember there. I try and play one game every year for the club. And eventually, as the years have gone by, I've kind of moved more east way towards Brighton and Eastbourne.
So you dropped in there. You lived in Spain. You lived in the US, obviously. Your mom's side of the family is Italian. How many languages do you speak?
Well, English obviously being my first. I can speak in English, Italian and Spanish. It's not fluent, but it just about gets me by. I should be better, but yeah, if I'm in Spain, I try and speak as much Spanish as possible. If I speak with my Italian relatives, I try and speak Italian with them. But yeah, no, it should be better, but yeah, I try and speak as much as I can.
It's probably better than my Italian. I took a few years in college, and
Yeah,
I can count to 10. I can probably count to 100. And like I told you in
that's all
Mexico,
you need. That's all you need.
yeah, give me some money. Uno, do a trade.
Yeah, you'll be fine in the bank.
How much of your Spanish were you able to recall to put to use in Mexico on tour?
Actually, it came out all right, actually. I ended up being a bit of a translator for the girls. Some of them study at school, but yeah, it was quite funny trying to order things at the hotel or the restaurant. So yeah, I was kind of the go-to, or a few of us were the go-to, or trying to just translate just sort of simple basic stuff.
Well, I got yelled at actually at one point by a couple of the teenagers because one day during a post-match interview, I asked them, "How is it on tour? Are you able to hang out with the players?" And they thought, "Oh, with COVID protocol, we don't get to interact too much, but at the pool and other stuff on the off days, we do get to bond a little bit with some of the other players." And I said, "Oh, how good is their English?" And one of your teammates said, "What do you mean? How good is their English? Do you think we can't speak Spanish? We take it in high
Oh
school.
no.
Like we know how to speak Spanish. We can speak Spanish to them. Don't be such a snob, Peter."
Some of them are actually decent. Yeah, no, it was definitely more of an English conversation. The girls, all the other girls, Brazilian, Argentinians, their English was flawless. So yeah, put us to shame, really. We should have made more of an effort.
You're still able to order food. I was mildly surprised that I didn't embarrass myself too much in terms of when I was at least trying to order restaurant food. I was shocked at how much I could recall actually, because my mom
Yeah.
was a high school Spanish teacher for
Oh, right,
35,
okay.
40 years, and I took Spanish in school, and she told me before I left, "Don't embarrass the family." So hopefully, Mama Della Penna.
Don't stain the family name. Sorry, I'll just
Exactly.
pause
Yeah.
that.
Hopefully, I didn't let you down. So, all right, back to the cricket. So you're in the Sussex pathway, and one of the things you brought up also tied into cricket, which I always appreciate, is your tennis background. Talking about that, growing up, playing quite a lot of tennis growing up.
I think that's really generous. My tennis background, it's really not that deep. Thank you.
But I always feel there's this mythical caricature almost of what a cricketer is supposed to be, especially if you're transitioning as an American. And I know you've got quite a varied background in terms of your life experiences that led you to the U.S. national team. But for some of the players, whether it's male or female, there's this go get players from baseball or go get players from softball. And I've always tried to articulate to people that as somebody who grew up with those sports, anybody who tried to force on me, "Oh no, just hold a cricket bat, it's just like baseball," it made me more
Yeah.
confused because I played a lot of sports growing up, but one of them
Okay.
I played the longest was tennis, and I used to teach junior tennis lessons at the local tennis
Oh,
club in town.
nice.
And the technique for tennis, I always found, was the most transferable to cricket,
Yeah,
tennis
no,
and ice hockey,
I completely agree. Yeah.
because at a basic level, tennis and cricket are the only two sports where you're playing the ball off the bounce. So you have to be able to read and adjust to the speed of the ball coming off the court, if it's a grass court versus a clay court versus a hard court, and just training your eye to read the wrist position when a player is hitting the ball so you can recognize top spinner batsman. And so you read the wrist position of a bowler. That carries over from tennis to cricket. And I'm just curious, I know you're being modest, but in terms of your development as a junior athlete, how much of these things did you feel impact your ability to transition and develop as a cricketer, having had that early training in tennis?
Yeah, I mean, I've never really put two and two together. I guess mainly in terms of hand-eye coordination. I think that's probably the biggest area. I remember as a kid, obviously my sisters weren't very sporty. I would just sit in the backyard for hours, just bouncing a tennis racket and a ball against the back wall of the house for hours. I would just entertain myself that way. So I'm not sure in terms of movement. I know, like, I've worked with S&Cs who have a tennis background, and in terms of a ready position, a set position, it's very similar to receiving a serve, and the same as your fielding set position. And serving is the almost kind of replicating multiple bowling actions. So I've heard people talk about the research from that point of view, but as a kid, I think it was purely just the enjoyment. And yeah, I love all racket sports really. I like playing squash. I've heard squash is brilliant for cricketers in terms of fitness, and particularly like reverse sweeping and kind of flicky wrist shots. So yeah, I love all racket sports. So maybe, yeah, on another level it did maybe transfer, but I don't think it was down to that. My tennis is very average.
And you're talking about all these things in terms of hitting a racket and a ball against the wall at home and all that. Obviously, your first primary discipline now is bowling. But growing up, were you more of a batter growing up or an all-rounder, or how did your skills develop over time?
I think I was a bit of both, really. I love doing both. Probably, I remember as a junior scoring quite a few runs as a kid. Unfortunately, it's not happened yet in my career so far. But I just remember wanting to do everything as a kid. I even wanted to wicket keep. I always wanted to be in the game. So I think I batted quite high up the order for county stuff. Open the bowling, or was always first change. And just wanted to do as much as possible and be involved in the game, really.
Now, you talked about Horsham, and believe it or not, on Cricket Archive, your very first scorecard with Horsham is listed here, May 9th, 2010. So you would have been 11 years old, just a month short of your 12th birthday, playing for Horsham.
Oh my gosh.
For the Horsham women. You bowled 4 overs, 1 maiden, none for 16, and then you came in at number 9 and scored 12 off 16 balls with 2 boundaries.
That's not a bad game. Oh wow! I tell you what, that's not a bad game.
As an 11-year-old,
Mexico.
I would say so. As an 11-year-old, that's pretty good. What do you remember about your initial, I guess, club cricket experiences?
I don't actually remember my first game for Horsham. I do remember the transition going from softball to hardball. Obviously playing softball, that's how I first started playing. And then they said, yeah, you're going to play the women's now. They play hardball. And I remember sort of going through the whole phase that every kid does, trying the pads on, not being able to run the pads, putting a helmet on, thinking it's the heaviest thing in the world. And I remember the ball obviously being different weight from softball to hardball. The first ball I ever bowled with a hardball was at the women's training nets. I was obviously trying to impress them. Obviously really nervous as well. And the weight of the ball, I don't know. But anyway, the first ball I bowled went over the nets, like landed on top of the nets. And I was so embarrassed. And they said, oh, don't worry, like it's just the weight of the ball, you'll get used to it. But yeah, I was so nervous. And obviously I don't know what happened. But yeah, it actually landed on the top of the nets and I had to wait to the end of the session to get it down. So that's all I really remember. But yeah, I think from then, I don't think that happened too many times, hopefully.
Well, if you made it this far, I would guess not. That'd be my guess. But after that, Horsham, and that's the first official scorecard for Horsham we have. I don't know if you played before then. But what's remarkable is 3 weeks after that, just a week short of your 12th birthday, you made your Sussex under-13s women's debut against Essex. You played at Garin Park in Southend-on-Sea.
Garin Park is the windiest ground you'll ever play at or watch at. It's just a bowl. It is freezing. It could be, had its own microclimate. It could be 30 degrees outside the ground, but Garin Park will be at least 12 degrees, windy, rainy, the lot.
And in May, I'd imagine it's even worse.
Yeah, freezing. That's what I remember about Garin Park. But good teas. They did good teas.
So, well, that's important. Well, we might
that's
have
the main thing.
We might have that question later, Tara.
Okay.
If you paid attention to the favorite 11 with Carlos Andry, it could be coming up. You made your debut. You opened the bowling, took 1 for 6 in 3 overs. Even more impressive, you batted at number 3 and you scored 42. You top scored with 42 in the Sussex under-13 women's 5-wicket win. You chased a target of 121 with 2 overs to spare, and you top scored in that match. What do you remember about that day?
You know, I actually remember that game. And my captain said, do you want to open? I said, no, I don't want to open. Don't know why I said that. She said, okay, you're going 3. And I was like, I remember being so nervous, not wanting to bat. And they said, no, Tara, you're going 3. And yeah, I obviously batted all right. What do I remember? And that's it, I think. I just remember being a cold day, just freezing cold. Yeah, no, that's not bad. That's a great start.
At what stage did you start to treat cricket as a serious ambition along this journey? Would it have been around there, or was there some other match or some other sequence or moment or maybe a season that you can think of that where you said, all right, this isn't just something I'm doing for fun and to have as a social thing or play friends with. This is something that I actually am thinking about pursuing for the long haul?
I think probably at that age, it was purely about enjoyment. And obviously, especially the early days, it was more a way for me to meet friends. and kind of have that relationship and be involved in an after school club, that kind of thing. And obviously enjoyed it as well. But it wasn't really till I was exposed to more female cricketers. I had no idea there was an England women's team. So when I met, obviously Sarah Taylor is a Sussex girl. She would do some visits to training sessions, and I was just being in awe. I remember watching an England women's match when Charlotte Edwards was captain at the time, and yeah, just being amazed and thinking, wow, like I want to do this. I want to play professional cricket. This is amazing. You know, having no idea there was a team, a women's team. And I think they'd just come professional then as well, or maybe it wasn't until 2014 they went professional. Yeah, so probably 12, 13, 14, thinking, yeah, I'm going to give this a good go. And then probably it wasn't really until I was put on the Sussex Academy, which was just sort of more intense training and more S&C and gym work. I was pretty unfit as a kid. I just loved playing and loved eating cheese, so I didn't worry too much about the S&C point of view. So yeah, probably when I was on the Sussex pathway at 15, 16, thinking, oh, it's just called the EPP then, but same thing. Yeah, I remember thinking I'm going to give this a good go and knuckle down and see where this takes me.
As part of that pathway, when you said you were put into the Sussex Academy and then you're exposed to all these things to get cricket being taken a little bit more seriously, one of the other things that comes up through the statistical research is you were part of the England Women's Development Program. There was a group of academy teams that were put together, and you got to play with and against some pretty well-known names or established names, because the England women's cricket development has gone on. Some of the names that I think people might recognize from the early games that you played with, which would have been back in 2013. So at this stage, you would have been about 15 years old. A couple of the names that stand out to me, Ellie Threlkeld and Sophie Eccleston, are the players. You were on the same team as Sophie. I don't know if they mix and match players over the course of the academy, but at one stage you were at least definitely a teammate.
Yeah, I do remember that.
So what was it like rubbing shoulders? Obviously, this time you're not thinking like, oh, I'm going to be playing with somebody who's going to go up to here, and you're all with the same goal in mind. But what do you remember about those experiences and the level of competition at a time, like you said, where women's cricket at a senior level was just becoming professionalized, and these opportunities at a junior level for girls and women were just starting to kind of elevate at the time that you were coming up through the system?
Yeah, I remember they used to be called the Super Fours, those tournaments. So they'd make 4 teams of supposedly the best at the time cricketers of that age group. You'd go to a private school for the week. You'd board in the houses there that, you know, you're eating together, you're hanging out in the evenings, and they're playing games. I don't know, it might be 2 T20s, 250 overs, that kind of thing. And you've all got the most horrific kit you've ever seen in your life. Loads of just really unflattering colours and mix and matches, all oversized kit. But I just remember being just the best week ever, just playing cricket with your mates, away from your parents, playing some decent level cricket as well. And actually, I remember Sophie Eccleston on my team, and I remember she took this outrageous catch in the ring, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, she's obviously a couple of years younger than me, but I remember even then thinking, oh my gosh, this girl can play. So yeah, it's nice to see how well she's doing now. And yeah, Ellie Threlkeld, I'm really good mates with her now, even still. Sophie Dunkley as well, who's an absolute international superstar at the moment. Yeah, all grew up with them, playing with them. So yeah, I remember being just the time of my life, really, not even thinking really about the pressure. Obviously, it was basically a selection process, but at the time it was just a week away playing some cricket and being away from home.
Sophie Dunkley, yeah, there's another name I didn't come across when I was scanning the scorecard. Yeah, but she was obviously there as well. A number of illustrious names. So you had that experience again early on in your time, 2013, and then just a year later, actually, would have been a month short of your 16th birthday. You made your Sussex senior team debut against Warwickshire at Kemah Road. How do you pronounce that?
Kemah. Do you know, I remember that game actually.
Made your debut at Kemah Road in Ditchling. You got a thanks for coming, which is very similar to Shabani Bhaskar. Now, Shabani Bhaskar, I don't know if you were, she made her debut for, I think, Tamil Nadu when she was growing up playing her developmental cricket in India. Her parents working for the embassy, or her dad was working for the embassy at least, and so she traveled around the world. And at that time, she was based in Tamil Nadu, and she's based in Chennai now. But she had a very similar experience. She was playing with all these very illustrious names in the Indian state setup, who Indian international cricketers, and I'm pretty sure Shivani Bhaskar, she got a thanks for coming too, but she was
Big TFC.
it's hey, I've gotten my fair
It
share of those.
happens. Me too. There's plenty more to come after that, I'm sure.
Good old TFC, like you said. But just being able to take the field and rub shoulders, whether it was teammates or on the opposite side of the field, Warwickshire, Amy Jones was on the opposite side of the field, Georgia Elwes as a Sussex teammate, Georgia Adams, like you said, Sarah Taylor, who was, you mentioned before, somebody who was essentially an idol as an international star, who was the Sussex captain for you that day, Aaron Brindle. So you were playing in a pretty stacked lineup. So TFC on a day like that, it's kind of understandable. But what was that experience like for you?
Do you know, I remember the morning of the head coach pulling me aside and saying, "You're going to make your debut today," and I just remember being so nervous. Obviously, I was playing with. I mean, at the time, county cricket was amazing back then. If you weren't playing, it was essentially almost how the regional cricket is. It was really good level cricket. All your international superstars were playing county cricket. You know, it was a big deal. And the same as club cricket. Club cricket was really good. You still had international players playing club cricket. So yeah, I remember stepping on the pitch with the players, like you said, George Elwes, Sarah Taylor, Aaron Brindle, who was terrifying. I was just terrified to make a mistake because I knew she'd tell me off. Holly Colvin as well. So yeah, I think it's probably a good thing I didn't bowl or bat, as I'm sure I was extremely nervous.
What else do you remember about your experiences, I guess, at that point of your career as a teenager? At what stage would you say you got over the nervousness or those kind of raw feelings to the point where you started to feel like, hey, I actually belong here?
Yeah, I think sort of growing up, I've been 12th man for a lot of seasons. I remember going to Yorkshire and Lancashire away for a weekend and not playing a game, just doing my job as 12thers, which is, something which every kid, every cricketer is going to go through, every athlete will go through. And I kind of guess those experiences being around the team, whether you're playing or not, I established my role and I still felt valued. And I think it was probably an identity thing of knowing what my role in the team was, and my skill. And obviously I was still developing. I was, 16 at the time, still had a lot to learn, and even now have so much more to learn. So yeah, I guess it's kind of something which everyone goes through, but just being around the team really helped. And not being so starstruck by the likes of those international players and, just being on the field with them definitely helped.
Today's episode of the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast, presented by DreamCricket, is also sponsored by Musa Cricket Stadium, the first and original turf wicket facility in the state of Texas, and now one of the premier venues for the minor league cricket T20 franchise tournament. Located at 5515 McKeever Road in Pearland, 5 miles off the Bailey Road exit from State Route 288, and a half hour south of downtown Houston, Musa Cricket Stadium includes fully enclosed locker rooms and change rooms, plus shower facilities after a day's play, as well as outdoor nets for all your training needs. For more information, call 713-534-2195. That's Musa Cricket Stadium in Pearland, Texas. One of the other things, as part of your developmental journey towards professional cricket, you spent at least one summer and maybe 2 summers in Australia. Now, this is quite a common thing for a lot of male cricketers to do, spend Northern Hemisphere winter down in either Australia, South Africa, or New Zealand. But it's not something I've heard an awful lot of female cricketers do, and I'm quite fascinated how the opportunity came about for you. Who planted the seed in your mind, or was it something you pursued on your own? And how did it come about, and how were you connected with Paran Cricket Club in Victoria?
Yeah, God, that was 5 years ago now, which is kind of scary. I just remember finishing up my A-levels and thinking, I'm done with education. I am never going to uni. I'm done with studying. I'm going to go away. I'm going to go for the winter. I'm going to play some cricket, and then I'm going to come back and assess what I'm going to do with my life. And kind of sort of in a small women's cricket world in the UK, that was kind of what people did. You would go away for the winter, exactly like you said, the men do. So I emailed a bunch of clubs. A lot of them didn't get back to me. I had no idea where I wanted to go. And one of my really good friends, Naomi Tatani, the year before had been to Paran. So I just sent her a message and said, hey, I've seen you went to Australia last year. What was it like? What's the club like? Have you got any contact details? So I emailed the club. They got back to me really quickly. And yeah, they said, look, yeah, come out. We'd love to have you. I was 18 at the time. Didn't really know what I was going to get myself into. Just know that I wanted to get away, play some cricket and do a bit of traveling. So yeah, I went out, September 2016 for the winter and just had the most incredible time. And learned a lot as a cricketer, as a person as well, being away from home. Lived with Naomi Tatani as well, played the same club, met some really cool people out there. Carl Sandry, who was a coach at the time, and likes of Annabelle Sutherland as well, playing with her as I think she was 16 at the time when I met her, and obviously, yeah, she's an absolute superstar now. So yeah, it was the most incredible time, and to be able to travel as well and have a bit of freedom as a kid was yeah, everything I dreamed of.
You mentioned quite a few names there. Naomi Datani, I know, was one of your teammates for the 100 this past summer, I believe, and an established player in the setup. One of the names you didn't mention, you came across in Australia. You're starting to grin for people who can't see the screen. I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, but there's an article in the Herald Sun dated February 5th, 2017.
Oh, that was a good day.
That was a good day. I would say so, yes. Paran, how do you say it? Paran?
You need to say it with an Aussie accent. It helps. Paran. There you go.
Okay, Paran, yes. Paran wins Women's Premier 2020 Grand Final against Box Hill. And then the subheadline, Tara Norris almost single-handedly won the Women's Premier Cricket 2020 final for Paran.
That's very generous.
On Saturday. Well, you're being modest, but the further down we go, you took the wicket of Meg Lanning. Is that correct?
I did, yeah.
Meg Lanning. Well, you got the double Lanning. You got the Lanning double.
I
Meg
did.
And Anna Lanning. You got them both. It says here.
Yeah, I remember that.
Lanning, who claimed her third Belinda Clark Award as Australia's best women's cricketer last month, was removed for 2 as Paran scored a comfortable 7-wicket win. After being sent in to bat, Tara Norris made the pivotal breakthrough. She also removed Meg's sister Anna, Rebecca Carter, claiming the first 3 wickets to lead Box Hill 3 for 28. Take me through that day.
It was a hot day. It was absolutely roasting. It must have been 30 plus degrees, and obviously being from England, I'm not used to that kind of heat. Yeah, it was a big T20 final. I don't think Paran had ever won a T20 comp for a while, maybe. And I was actually working a second job. Well, I was working quite a few jobs out there. So I think I'd been coaching at a school that morning. Maybe done like a 7 till 10 a.m. coaching shift, scrammed some food, got on the train to the game. I can't remember what the game was actually, but it was a hot day. And yeah, took an early wicket, took Meg Lanning's wicket. Actually wasn't an amazing ball, but yeah, caught short third. I don't know what she was trying to do. So yeah, that was just the most ecstatic feeling ever, and just being around the team. And then I don't know why I hadn't batted at 3. I think I batted at 3. I hadn't batted much throughout the whole comp, and for some reason they said, you're going to bat 3 today. We want a left hand, right hand combo. So it must have been Naomi Tatani was opening, and they said, right, if the lefty gets out, you're in. If righty gets out, don't worry about it. So yeah, before I know it, I'm walking out to bat. I can't remember what we were chasing, but yeah, I remember batting with Emma Ingalls, and then just sort of finishing the game off really. And it was, yeah, lots of celebrations after. And I think as well, Aussie cricket, it can be pretty ruthless. You've really got to prove yourself to the teammates, especially as an overseas. So being 18 and quite naive, I don't think I probably found myself in that team until that day. So I remember after that, I felt a little bit more, almost like I'd earned my place in the team and kind of respected in the group and at the club. So yeah, that game was a massive shift point and a massive confidence boost for me. And definitely a day which I'll remember forever. I've still got the medal in my room back home in England. I'm sure my dad's got the news article clip somewhere. Yeah, no, it was crazy.
So you took that big haul, and then you finished 30 not out with 4 boundaries. You had an all-around performance that day. In terms of confidence boost, like you said, but also the elevated expectations, whether that's placed on you by somebody else or you personally start to set bigger goals for yourself. When you come off of that, whether it's grade cricket, some other form of cricket, and you get somebody like Meg Lanning out, like the article says, 3-time Belinda Clark medal winner, what does that do for you mentally in terms of how you approach cricket going forward?
I think it's just that sense of belief that I've done this before. Okay, she might be the best player in the world, but I'm going to give this a good go. I'm going to trust myself. And yeah, for me, it was just a massive belief in my ability. Confidence is probably something which I've always struggled with from a cricket point of view. So moments like that, getting those wickets of key players in various tournaments, you just need to bank them and put them in a safe place, because sometimes, when you're going through those dark phases, you need to remember those successful moments, and they go so quick, those moments. So for me, it's about enjoying, those very rare moments and always sort of referring back to them whenever you need them.
You have those moments in Australia, like you said, and then you come back to England with the Sussex setup. This past year, I believe you said, was your first year as a fully professional contracted cricketer with Sussex. So you kind of touched on it a little bit about you didn't want to be pursuing school on a serious way going forward
Yeah.
longer than you had to. So these years, 18, 19, 20, where do you need to go to university? Do you want to go to university? Is it something that's actually makes sense spending your northern winter in Australia? There's like a turning point there in terms of, am I going to make it, or do I need to have a backup plan? At what point did you feel like you were within touching distance where a professional career was a legitimate reality for you?
Yeah, I think so. Even then, kind of in the women's game, to play for England or to play professional cricket, you had to play for England, and to play for England, you had to go to Loughborough University. That was basically what it was. Loughborough has it's the home national ground, the home national training facility, the ECB training facility. It's where pretty much 90% of England female cricketers went. They all went to Loughborough Uni. So I remember having a conversation with my dad, thinking, do I go back to Australia and do a third consecutive season, or shall I give it a good go, invest 3 years and try and come out of some kind of contract, having no idea about these regional contracts in 3-4 years time. So after saying, yeah, I'm done with education, I'm not going, I signed the dotted line and I signed up for 3 years of university, got myself to Loughborough. I was actually on the EWDP Under-19s Academy. So whilst I was away, so had been exposed to all this amazing training, facilities, coaching. And then when I arrived at uni, I was dropped from the squad, wasn't selected for the Under-19s program. And the coach, the EWDP coach and the Loughborough University head coach, Sal Briggs at the time, who is now Hobart Hurricanes head coach, said to me, look, you're not in the squad, but you're at the right place. And I remember, and I think I always remember these words. She said, look, if you want it, it's all here for you to grab. The facilities, the coaches, everything, it's all here for you to have. So if you want it, it's yours, but you've got to work for it. So I think after being dropped from that, I just had this hunger. So for the next 3 years, or probably for the next year, I worked hard, tried to attempt some studies. And yeah, a year later, I got picked up for an England Academy tour to South Africa, which obviously I wasn't in the squad. I wasn't even up for selection, but just being at Loughborough, coaches had seen me train on my own and go in and get overs in and, go about my normal business kind of thing. So that was kind of a massive curveball for me, really, something I wasn't expecting, and something which made me realize, actually, if I work hard, I'm going to get rewarded. So yeah, I went on that tour and that was just incredible. And to be in that environment, and I remember thinking, yeah, I can get used to this. I want some more of this. And it kind of just kept fueling the fire. So yeah, 3 years of university. Obviously, it wasn't until I was finishing my dissertation in my last year at uni, last summer in the pandemic, and we had a Zoom call. Every single female cricketer was on this Zoom call about these domestic contracts. And I remember group chats going off, people messaging people saying, what's going on? Are these contracts going to happen because of the pandemic? Where's the budget coming from? What's going to happen? Is there going to be a cricket season? And then as I'm pretty much my final week of trying to bash out my dissertation, I get a phone call from Adam Carty, the Vipers director, offering me a retainer contract, which I never was expecting, especially a retainer contract, which was, pretty rare to get. So yeah, pretty much the day I handed my dissertation and I'd signed my contract for the Vipers. So yeah, the 3-year investment in uni paid off. I have no idea how, but yeah, in my head it was always, well, do I want to work full time or should I really give this a go? I had no idea what other path or route I would have taken. For me, it was just cricket. So yeah, obviously it's paid off, thankfully, and I'm very, very happy and grateful that it has. So yeah, that was again just one of those curveball moments. Sat down thinking, which path do I take, I guess.
What did you do your degree in at Loughborough?
It was sports science and management. It's a classic Loughborough. Not sure what to do with your life. Let's just go for sports science and see what happens.
Let me go back a bit to one of the things you touched on there in your previous answer. Getting dropped or being left out of an under-19 squad. I encounter this a lot with parents and players in and around the US, especially in the boys setup. There hasn't really been a girls under-19 setup until very, very recently. They tried to start the girls under-19 national championships for the first time this past summer, but up until then, there hasn't really been any girls development pathway in junior setup in that sense. But in the boys setup, what I find a lot over the years in America is that if a player does not get picked for USA under-19, then they feel like cricket almost isn't worth playing anymore, and they want to give up, and it's sky is falling, everything's finished. Where am I going to go if I can't make US Under 19? Well, then I definitely don't have a shot at the US senior team if I can't even make US Under 19. And what gets lost in that is that there's so much development that is still happening from 18, 19 to 21, 22, 23. And there are a handful of players that I have come across who, rather than having this sky is falling mentality, it becomes a huge source of motivation, that it lights a fire under them. They take it as a slight, instead of it being, oh, I've been talented, I've worked, I've made every step of the way, and I tick the boxes, and this is just the next step. It's a blow to the ego, for one thing. Oh my God, like, I'm not that great. Like, I still have to actually have to work a little bit hard. Nothing's going to be handed to me. And some people, that blow to the ego, it's like, oh, it's not worth playing anymore. I don't want to play. I can't handle this. And other people, it drives them harder. For you, it sounds like you're in the latter group, where instead of you taking it as a huge negative, it was a very motivating reinforcement moment in your career to where you are today. What was it about that experience and how you reacted, besides what you've mentioned about the coaches who taught you and tried to give you some encouragement, motivation? What is it about that experience that you felt has allowed you to improve, to keep going to the point where you were able to secure a professional contract?
Yeah, I think it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, actually. When you're on those kinds of programs, you've got everything handed to you on a silver platter, pretty much. You've got everything, S&C, people in contact with you most days, checking in on things, everyone monitoring your, every bit of development. So being off that program meant I had to take a lot of ownership, which I think is a massive bonus for a lot of players. I do a bit of coaching now, and any player that I coach who has a sense of their own game awareness, I know they're going to make it a long way. Obviously, being at Loughborough, I was also on an MCC program. So again, that's probably the second best winter program you can ever be involved in. So I was taken care of in that point of view. But in terms of understanding my own game and what I wanted to achieve and how I was going to go about it, I had to take a lot more ownership and responsibility, which I think is probably what helped me get closer and closer. But yeah, saying that, the MCC program was absolutely brilliant. And I think the people I was around as well. My first year of uni, I was in an amazing squad of a cricket team. And I think being around like-minded people, I was obviously living with Sophia Dunkley and Ellie Threlkeld. Obviously, that was when Dunks wasn't quite a superstar just yet. But being around those players who want the same thing, and we kind of just drove each other and bounced ideas off each other. And it would be things like running at 7:30 in the morning, which obviously no one wants to do, especially in an English winter. But getting people around that, doing it for each other, and dragging your mates through the tough times. For me, that's probably where the biggest areas have changed for my cricket career, and where the drive came from, having people push me and vice versa. Yeah, being around those people, surround yourself with those kinds of people.
One of the other things you mentioned about that experience, getting dropped initially, but then being included as part of a South Africa tour, playing for the England Academy is how it was labeled. Played against in South Africa, and you also played against an Australia Under 19 team as part of the Tri-Series. And I know you mentioned Annabelle Sutherland before as one of the players you played around in Victoria when you played for Paran. Annabelle Sutherland was in that Australia Under 19s team.
Yeah, she was.
Georgia Wareham was also in there, Taylor Lammick. And then for the England team that you played with, was captained by Holly Armitage, and then Charlotte Dean, Sophia Dunkley, as you said, Emma Lamb, Sarah Glenn, Ellie Threlkeld, and you were part of that squad as well. What do you remember about that as being one of your first, I guess, major touring experiences, going abroad with part of an England setup?
Yeah, I remember being, it was a lot of fun. I don't think we did brilliant as a cricket side, unfortunately. I also remember, for some reason, the other two teams were in these really nice, swanky hotels in quite a safe part of Pretoria. And I don't know why, but for some reason we were basically in the city, and we had a security guard with us. He was looking after us. But I remember being in this hotel, and I don't know what happened, but yeah, it wasn't the safest place to be. So we had a few little issues there. But for me, I just remember thinking everything right now is a bonus, because I'm not even in the squad. And for me, the coaches word it to me: look, you've got a free for all, you've got a free ride. If you go well, great. If you don't go well, there's no expectations. So take it how you will. So that was kind of, for me, I don't know if other people's experiences on it, but for me, it was a free trip to try and prove myself, basically, and be exposed to that kind of training, that environment, that culture. And yeah, I remember I said to the head coach, we kind of had reviews at the end of the tour, and I just said, yeah, like, what happens now? You know, what's the plan now? Am I going to play games? And probably being quite annoying actually, and just thinking, yeah, I've had a little taste of it, and I want more. So you know, what I do, what I have to do to come back, what do I have to do for you to call me again, and get me in a squad? So yeah, probably quite irritating actually, but I remember then that being, yeah, another kind of little moment for me to think, yeah, I can go one step above this.
And part of that one step above, again, securing a professional contract. So being part of the Sussex Academy and the Southern Vipers. And even though 2021 was your first year as a fully contracted player, you've been, again, part of the squad for quite some time in the Sussex setup. You played before the 100, you played in the Kia Super League, and you played in the Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy for the Southern Vipers. And in the Kia Super League, actually, I believe you were with the Loughborough Lightning.
I did, yeah.
As part of the setup there when you were still, I guess, attending uni. In terms of those experiences in the new era of the women's professional setup prior to the 100, and I do want to ask you about the 100 as well, but prior to the 100, some of these other things, how would you evaluate your own personal experiences, and how would you evaluate the standard of the entire setup compared to what you had experienced previously on the pathway?
Yeah, it's just another step up. The Kia Super League was brilliant. You know, you're playing against international players, you're playing with them you're training with them. You know, the likes of training with Sophie Devine, Mignon Dupree, God, I can't even name them all, but to play in different teams as well. It was a massive step up, something that I'd never experienced or been exposed to. I remember it being quite an intense 4 weeks. Obviously, you're traveling, you're training, you're playing. I was still at uni, probably, yeah, 18, 19 at the time. And yeah, just being starstruck to be able to play with these amazing players. Personally, I think I was involved for 3 years in the Kia Super League, and I think I played 4 games. So again, I never had a major role in the KSL, which is why getting a contract as well was, you know, just incredible, because, you know, in my eyes, I was probably a nobody. Hadn't done loads in semi-pro cricket. I guess one thing going from that, I was left-handed, had a slight point of difference. But for me, again, that's another reason there's a lot of frustration about being left out of squads and not playing, and, you know, wanting it just so badly. That being in the Vipers environment is probably the first time that I've had a secure role and known my place. Whereas, yeah, in the KSL, I mean, I was a nobody, played very little. All my friends, all my best mates were playing pretty much every game. So again, for me, that was just even more fuel to the fire, basically, to try and get a gig. And, you know, even with 100, I wasn't expecting a gig based on my KSL career. So yeah, to be in the Vipers environment and to be, you know, valued as a player and really looked after and nurtured in that kind of sense is, yeah, you know, I'm 23, and this is probably the first time I've ever really been secure in a position for a full season.
You talk about the difference between T20 form and form in the other formats. You had only played, like you said, only 4 games in the Q Super League, 1 in 2017 and 3 in 2019. You were much more successful in the Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy, especially last summer. You were second on the Southern Vipers in wickets. You had 12 for the Vipers, and that was 3 behind the team leader, Charlotte Taylor. But you've got some other names in the squad, and you performed quite respectably amongst those, but it was a different format. So how much stock do you think some of the evaluators put into what they were seeing in the other formats to have that belief that you were worth taking a chance on, not just as a full-time contracted player with the Vipers, but by extension, getting a gig in the 100?
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure really. I'd like to think a lot of it's character and attitude. I'd like to think I'm a really hard worker, and whatever I do, I put all my effort into it. So I think work ethic wise, a lot of coaches might have looked out for that. And I guess, yeah, the point of difference being left-handed bowler and batter, especially in T20 cricket, you know, just watching the men's T20, you always want to have a leggy and a left-handed bowler. So yeah, that was probably a blessing really. And I guess it's just context as well, you know, being in different teams and having a good reputation, I guess. So yeah, very fortunate in that sense for sure.
This past summer, getting a chance to be part of the Southern Brave again, I guess the next step is your experiences in the 100, an elevated standard, because you've got fewer teams, you've got more overseas players being allowed to come in and be part of the squads. So for you, being able to be a teammate of Smriti Mandana and Stefani Taylor of the West Indies, who was again a marquee player in your side. So two pretty big international names. I don't want to leave her out. Amanda Jade Wellington too. She's
You
in
can't
there.
leave Wello out.
Yeah. So you had a pretty stacked roster. Danny Wyatt's in there, Sophia Dunkley,
Yeah, Shrubsole. Yeah, a very good team.
deep roster to say the least. With all the furor about the 100 and why are they tearing up the established way of doing things and this 100 is pointless, I think one of the things that was celebrated about the 100 was its impact on women's cricket specifically. It seemed like it did a huge amount for the exposure, having those double headers side by side where the women and men were playing at the same venue, and that extra exposure for the women was significant, and the attention and just the recognition of the standard of play. Like I said, a lot of people were not so high on the 100 beforehand, but for you getting a chance to be part of it and the experiences that you got to go through over the course of the summer, what was the 100 like from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the KSL was brilliant, but oh my gosh, the 100 was next level. It was amazing for both the men's and women's game. I think the biggest thing was the crowds. No way would I have dreamt of playing in front of 26,000 people in a 100 final game, which is just absurd, really, for a domestic player. For a nobody, really, to be in that situation was just crazy, especially at Lords. And yeah, just in terms of for the women's game, the awareness. I had people messaging me who I'd not spoken to for years saying, "I've never liked cricket, I've never watched in my life, but I love the 100." And actually, I've heard a lot of good feedback. I don't think I heard a lot of negative stuff apart from maybe potentially slightly older, more traditional cricket fans. But I had so many amazing, lovely messages from people who absolutely love the 100. Just watching young girls who had Lauren Bell t-shirts on or Sophia Dunkley t-shirts on. They didn't want the men's tops on and the women's tops. It was just brilliant. And there was one moment when obviously it was a double header, which worked so well. There was a moment when kind of half the players were walking back to our hotel and we walked by the ground, and all of a sudden the crowd stands up, starts cheering, starts applauding, starts whistling, doing everything, and we sort of are looking around thinking, oh, like, has there been a boundary, like what are they cheering for? And they were cheering for us. And it's one of those moments which was very naive of us and quite sweet and innocent, really, thinking, oh my gosh, they're cheering for us, like that's crazy. And so for the next few home games, every time we walked back to the hotel, we said, no, let's go this way, just because it was just so much fun. And again, just having that, again, we were, we're just county domestic cricketers. But you see people with signs with your names on. Even just speaking to the England girls, they said, we would never get a crowd like this, even for an international game, which is just crazy. And the stats for the audiences and the crowds that we had were just, God, it's just amazing what the game did, particularly for the women's game and the awareness. And I hope that it just continues to go to progress. And yeah, the double headers work so well. And having a franchise link to the men as well really helped the game. And I think just the amount of funding and marketing that was put into it, it couldn't not go well. I know there's a lot of skeptical and some people not the biggest fan of it to start with, but the amount of money they invested and the way it was so run so well, and the marketing behind it was brilliant. Yeah, it was an amazing opportunity, amazing experience, and hopefully it's something I can be involved with for a few years.
Are you a Palm Bear loyalist for life now?
A Palm Bear? Do you know we didn't get any Palm Bears?
What?
Maybe that's the one flaw. There was no Palm Bears, not a Palm Bear in sight actually. Look, playing for the Brave was absolutely amazing. I would love to play for the Brave again. But I think what's really exciting about this is that there's the opportunity with the money as well that you can chop and change, and it's very flexible. It's a 4-week comp. You can play for a different team. You could play up north, down south, wherever. But yeah, playing for the Palm Bears for the Brave was absolutely brilliant. And obviously, playing under Charlotte Edwards as well. He's my Vipers coach as well, was very special. And yeah, being on her team is one of the best things ever.
I want to ask about Charlotte Edwards. There's a few points about her, but before that, one other quick point, again, going on a thing you raised in the previous answer, before the Palm Bear reference. For people who are not aware, Palm Bears was the snack, the crisp brand that was on the front of the Southern Brave jersey. You mentioned Lords. You had never played there before this summer. There was the group stage match against the London Spirit and then the final against the Invincibles. you mentioned the crowds, being able to play at Lord's, not just Lord's, but being able to play at Lord's in front of a huge crowd. Give us a sense of the kind of crowds, if there were any, that you were playing in front of in your previous seasons, and then the transformation that took place this past summer, and just mentally, what is that like to go from the crowds or lack thereof before this past summer and being able to play in front of the crowds? Were you able to tune it out and block it out and just focus on the task game, or did you catch yourself at times going, oh my God, where did all these people come from? And I better perform, or else who knows who's watching?
Yeah, the crowds aren't forgiving at all. They're not forgiving. Yeah, I think previously, maybe the most I've ever played in front of is maybe 6,000 people at Hove for a KSL final, which again, I came on as like a fielder sub for a play that had to go off. So I was maybe there for like 10 overs. I was thinking for an evening game, thinking, wow, this is pretty cool. And then obviously because of the pandemic, we'd played a whole summer without crowds, family weren't even allowed to come on the grounds, which was a massive shame. So I think maybe because of that as well, it was just an added bonus of, oh my gosh, there's 26,000 people here. Or I think the first game at Trent Bridge might have been 16,000 people. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is so cool. It was so loud. There was music going on, and being on the pitch, I mean, there's a lot of noise, but it's good noise. It's good energy. And I think the crowd picks up the energy really well. So I thought it was brilliant. I love being around it. And yeah, the Lord's final was just crazy. Having my parents and my sister there was really special. They don't get to watch me often. So the fact that they were there watching me at Lord's, which is something which we'd kind of spoken about, for years. I'd said, you're going to watch me play at Lord's one day, just watch. It was really special. Obviously, it wasn't the result that we wanted. I think, when the pressure comes on, I remember when I was batting in the final, it was just silence. I'm sure there's a lot of noise, but I don't remember any of that. I just remember just trying to watch the ball. I just remember Danae Van Neer kept bowling at me thinking, right, wait for the spin, and just channeling in and just zoning in for the moment and trying to hit the ball basically. But yeah, the noise, the atmosphere is crazy. I can't explain it.
So you heard it from Tara. Not everybody hates the 100, despite what you may read in the press. And she's looking forward to year 2 in the 100, and she's looking forward to more opportunities with the USA national team coming off her inaugural experience in Mexico. She's with the squad now in Zimbabwe, and we'll be talking a lot more about her foray into the USA national team, rediscovering her American roots, and so much more in part 2 of the interview with Tara Norris. So stay tuned for that coming up next week. Want to remind everybody, if you haven't done so, you can subscribe on YouTube to get the video format, or in audio form, you can find the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast presented by DreamCricket on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM. That's it for this episode. I'm Peter Della Penna, reminding everybody, God bless America, and God bless American cricket.